트럼프 대통령이 또다시 인터뷰를 통해 캐나다와 러시아, 중국, 북한을 언급했고, 이는 대한민국의 관세 정책은 물론이고 안보에 심각한 영향을 끼칠 것으로 보입니다. 처음에는 트럼프 1, 2대를 생각하면서 어느 정도는 허풍이라고 생각했다는 사람들이 이제 트럼프가 한국에 매우 중대한 영향을 끼칠 것이라며 놀라고 있는 상황인데요. 어제 있었던 인터뷰를 통해서 한국에 어떠한 영향을 끼칠지 살펴보도록 하겠습니다. 첫 번째, 캐나다에 대한 내용 최종 정리.
They have a $60 billion trade deficit. China has like a $300 billion last year. You said it goes up to, when you add it all up, it's $1 trillion.
Way over 100, Canada. And here's my problem with Canada. Canada was meant to be the 51st state because we subsidize Canada by $200 billion a year. We don't need their cars. We don't need their lumber. We have a lot of lumber. We freed it up, as you know, last week. We're freeing it up so that you can actually cut down a tree without being, given the death penalty. Because what these radical environmentalists have done to our country, but we freed it up. But we don't need their lumber. We don't need their energy. We don't need anything. We certainly don't want their automobiles. They make a lot of millions of automobiles are sent in. I'd rather have them made in Michigan. I'd rather have them made in South Carolina or any one of our.
But you're tougher with Canada than you are with some of our biggest adversaries.
Only because it's meant to be our 51st state. And
okay, but
but listen to this for a second.
We need their territory. They have territorial advantage. We're not going to let them get close to China.
Look, right? I deal with every country, indirectly or directly. One of the nastiest countries to deal with is Canada. The people that, now this was Trudeau. The people that good old Justin, I call him Governor Trudeau, his people were nasty. And they weren't telling the truth. They never told the truth. You know that, they'd say, well, we don't charge. Well, they do. They charge tremendous. They charge tremendous. And if you look at dairy products, what they've done to our farmers, I'd go up to Iowa. I'd go up to different places, Nebraska, and they would always complain about Canada, how they get ripped off. Do you know that Canada has a 250% tariff? 250, nobody knows that. They charge us numbers that are crazy. We have a very big deficit with Canada, and there's no reason, much more, we have much more.
I don't think so.
Just so you understand, we subsidize Canada. And I like Canada. I love Canada. I love Wayne
now
Gretzky.
The Liberal guys,
I love his wife.
The Liberal Party is going to win now in the next election, most likely. And they were down and out. But isn't that going to make them more hostile to us and possibly
no, I'd rather deal with a liberal than a
for China, closer to Canada, and that would really put us in a bind.
The conservative that's running is stupidly no friend of mine. I don't know him, but he said negative things. So when he says negative things, I couldn't care less. I think it's easier to deal, actually, with a liberal. And maybe they're going to win, but I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me at all.
So your end game is what with them?
My end game is I don't want to have a big deficit. I don't want to see the United States of America, and you say 60 and I say 200, but it doesn't matter. I don't want us to pay 60 or $200 billion to a country that if they were a state, think of this, it would be our biggest, most beautiful, it would be great. This state, it would be cherished. We'd take care of it. The people would pay half what they're paying right now. Canada pays very little for defense. They think we're going to defend them.
We protect them.
What?
We protect them.
We protect them. We protect them. Do you know in NATO they pay less than anybody else? In everything else, they go, we're in the process of buying 48 icebreakers. All of a sudden I see Canada's involved where they're going to get a piece of them. I say, what are they paying? And so I got tired of it. Here's the story. I had one of the most successful economies. I had the most successful economy in the history of our country in my first 4 years. We did a great job. Largest tax cuts ever, largest everything. We had right to try where people were able to use drugs. Stupidly, for many years, they weren't able to use, the far-reaching drugs because they weren't approved yet. Somebody's terminally ill, they couldn't do it. With me, they can do it. We did so many things. We rebuilt our military. Canada doesn't pay for military. They don't give any, they give us nothing. And they are the worst people to negotiate with of everybody.
You got them with USMCA. You finally got them around the edge on that, though.
No, I got them there. And USMCA is good, but they cheat. An agreement's good, but they cheat. And Mexico cheats also.
But China cheated on your 2019.
Can I tell you what?
Phase one, they totally cheated and dropped it with Biden. You had a great deal.
When Biden took over, he didn't push them. I would call up once every 2 weeks saying you're not living up to the agreement, and they'd buy more corn, more this. So the most we ever did was $15 billion with China, the farmers and everything, and manufacturing.
Yeah.
I had them up to $50 billion, and they were doing it. When Biden got it, do you think Biden called up President Xi and said, you're screwing us?
여기서 트럼프는 지금까지 캐나다를 51번째 주로 삼겠다는 발언이 장난이 아님을 밝혔고 관세 전쟁도 더 심하면 심하게 진행되었지 실제로 실행할 것임을 확고하게 말했습니다. 금주 트럼프 행정부가 처음으로 한국에 대해 관세 폭탄을 내릴 것이라 경고했기에 이런 움직임은 매우 우려되는데 트럼프는 여기에 더해 한국 주변국에 대해 한술 더 뜨고 있습니다. 두 번째, 한국 주변국에 대한 발언.
We got a readout of your call with Vladimir Putin, and it was a fairly optimistic take. Vladimir Putin agreed to a ceasefire immediately on energy and infrastructure,
right,
but not to a 30-day ceasefire. Tell us what happened.
Well, you have a situation where you have a lot of guns pointing at each other foolishly because it would have never happened if I were president. That was not a war that was supposed to happen. And it did happen. So that's where we are. And right now, you have a lot of guns pointing at each other. And a ceasefire without going a little bit further would have been tough. Russia has the advantage, as you know. They have encircled about 2,500 soldiers. They are nicely encircled, and that's not good. And we want to get it over with. Look, we're doing this. There are no Americans involved. There could be if you end up in World War III over this, which is so ridiculous, but, you know, strange things happen. And I think we had a great call. It lasted almost 2 hours, talked about a lot of things, and toward getting it to peace. And we talked about other things also.
Was there non-negotiables mentioned by Putin? It was reported that, I think the Kremlin media actually stated that he demanded an immediate cessation of aid to Ukraine in order to get to this multi-step deal.
No, he didn't. We didn't talk about aid, actually. We didn't talk about aid at all. We talked about a lot of things, but aid was never discussed.
In the readout, it also stated that both sides want to get to an improved bilateral relationship, the United States and Russia.
That's true.
How can we trust that Vladimir Putin actually wants that, in that he's not also being influenced at the same time by his close friend, President Xi of China?
Well, look, we have our own discussions with President Xi of China, and he wants to get along also, and he's looking to get along, and we're looking to get along with him, and we will. We have a problem of trade where we have a very big imbalance with China. With Russia, we don't have that much trade, and they'd like to, and we'd like to also. They have some very valuable things for us, including very big forms of rare earth. They have a lot of earth. You know, they have a big chunk of real estate, the biggest in the world for a country by far. And on that, they have things that we could use, frankly, and that other people could use. I think that President Xi would like to get along, and I think Russia wants to get along with the United States. I also think we're a much different country than we were just a few months ago. We're a country that's now respected. We were not respected. We were being laughed at. We had incompetent leadership. This was a war, as an example, that would have never happened if I were president.
Is part of your desire to forge this new relationship with Russia also impacted by Russia's closer relationship since you left office in 2021 with China? Because I think you talked about before the desire to box out China from that part of the world and have a closer relationship with Russia.
So as a student of history, which I am, and I've watched it all, the first thing you learn is you don't want Russia and China to get together. With that being said, no, it's not a big part of it, but maybe that'll happen or maybe it won't. Obama really forced them together through energy and bad energy policies. And what he did, so many different things. He forced a marriage which would never have taken place. It was not a natural. And for one reason, Russia has tremendous land, a lot of land, and China doesn't have enough land. Russia has a much smaller population than China. And it's sort of it was always a natural enemy situation. They're probably friendly now, but we're going to be friendly with both. I think we're going to be friendly with both. China needs us in terms of trade very badly, but we have to straighten out the deficit. We have now more than $1 trillion deficit with China. It's not even believable. And we're going to be doing something about that. And with Russia, they would like to have some of our economic power.
The criticism that you've heard since really 2015 is that you have more in common with Vladimir Putin than you do with globalist leaders, maybe some NATO leaders, and in this case, with Zelensky. You're both nationalists. Zelensky's more of a globalist. How do you respond to that criticism?
Well, I am a nationalist, but I'm a nationalist for the United States, not for anybody else. And it's interesting because there's nobody been tougher on Russia than me. I'm the one that pointed out Nord Stream 2, and I stopped it. Nord Stream's the biggest pipeline, I guess, in the world, taking care of all of Europe. And it was being built from before I got there. And somehow they were on the way. It was going to be, and I stopped it. It was just stone cold dead. I stopped it in its tracks. That's not somebody that's being particularly, it was the biggest project they ever had. I had it stopped. When Biden got in, he immediately approved it, like immediately. One of the first things he did in office was he approved Nord Stream 2. Nobody ever heard of Nord Stream 2 until I was president. I said, what are you doing? You mean you're building a pipeline to Germany and various places in Europe. You're paying them billions of dollars a month, and then we're paying a lot of money to fight them. This is not going to work out well. And it stopped, and then Biden approved it, which was a really stupid thing to do, but he did it. And Putin actually said to me, if you're my friend, I'd hate to see you as my enemy. He said that very strongly. But with all of that, I had a very good relationship with Putin. I had a very good relationship with President Xi, a very good relationship with Kim Jong-un of North Korea. Lots of good relationships. And that's a positive thing. That's not a negative thing. But at the same time, I'm about our country. So that's why we're talking about tariffs. We'll be taking in trillions of dollars.
이로써 트럼프는 러시아, 중국, 북한에 대해서 그저 관계가 좋다고 얘기하고 있기 때문에 한반도 안보가 오히려 중국의 대만 침공이나 북러 조약 등 풍전등화가 아니냐는 해석도 나옵니다. 과연 트럼프의 이러한 행동이 한국에 어떤 영향을 끼치게 될지 귀추가 주목됩니다. 트리블TV였습니다. 감사합니다.